everybody, and welcome to Psyched Out, a podcast where I, your host Emily, talk about things like true crime, movies, and all that jazz. Today we're going to be talking about the Epstein Files. For those who don't know, I have a background in law enforcement and a degree in forensic psychology, which allows me to provide a little bit of unique insight. So I have set a goal for myself where I am going to go through legitimately every document available in the Epstein Files released by the DOJ. I am starting with photos. I just completed Dataset 1, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. If you are on the podcast side of things, I'm going to try and describe the photos that I'm looking at, the ones that stood out to me. If you want to see it visually, please head over to YouTube, Psyched Out. I will post that there. You'll be able to see the photographs. But yes, I will do my best to give a brief description so you can kind of visualize what it is that I am talking about. Again, I am slowly picking my way through things. I think Dataset 1 has about 2,000 photos. I'm going to try and break it down. This is not political. Just so you guys are aware, there's a lot of people that are photographed with Epstein. And it's just a reminder that, one, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. And number two, he had a vast reach in the upper echelons of society, so just because somebody met him and is photographed with him does not necessarily mean that they too are a child predator. However, I will caveat that with the fact that a lot of the people who were photographed with him have either been convicted of sex trafficking and child predator behavior or are currently under investigation. That I will get into a little bit more when it comes to Dataset 2, because that's a little bit more of the personal photographs of Epstein with different people, whereas Dataset 1 pertains to his properties. So Dataset 1 is something that I'm going to focus on for this episode, and what I'm going to focus on is, one, the things that stood out to me in the photographs, what I think they tell us about Jeffrey Epstein, because you can tell a lot based on the way that somebody decorates their personal space. And I think that he said a lot of the quiet parts out loud, and either people just intentionally ignored it or they knew and just didn't care. So we're going to go ahead and jump on into it. I'm going to shrink down my camera, and we're going to go ahead and start yapping. So, first and foremost, I'm going to go in the order of how I discovered these photos. This right here is something that stood out to me immediately because it reminds me of the Oval Office. It feels like a mockery of it, but aesthetically, it is almost identical. The Oval Office obviously has the presidential desk. And then behind it directly are a set of windows, and then there's a door on either side. Now, this is a smaller dimension, so the doors aren't necessarily as far away from the desks. But if you were facing the desk in photographs of the presidential office, I believe there is a door that leads to an outside area and a door that leads to some other offshoot of the Oval Office. There's another angle of it. Again, it just reads like mini Oval Office, right? And off to the side, we have some photographs of celebrities. This is Marilyn Monroe. I think this is Audrey Hepburn. I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure. What this says to me is, number one, this is a guy who thinks that he has power that is on the same level as the president. And given the circumstances and the influence that he has, he's not entirely wrong. In that regard. Epstein had a shit ton of power financially, politically, and just socially, especially because of what he knew about certain people. I mean, he could blackmail the hell out of just about anybody. So this is somebody who, in my opinion, is incredibly narcissistic, very obsessed with self-image, which is something that I will get into when it comes to Dataset 2, but we can see hints of it here. And the fact that this is the first room that you see when you enter his New York estate says a lot. You're basically coming into an authoritative figure's Oval Office, and then you get to go to the rest of the house if they approve of you. Something that I want to point out that is very interesting is that this painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress and red high heels is on the wall leading into Epstein's little Oval Office replica. There's a note framed to the side of it. I wish I could read what it says. Whoever took photographs never actually photographed that. But yeah, this is definitely Bill Clinton. I was unsure as to what this meant. Somebody on TikTok, when I posted it, said that it might be a reference to Monica Lewinsky's blue dress, which I think is possible. But what this says to me is, number one, Bill Clinton posed for this, which is interesting. Whether he was in a dress and heels, I don't know. He could have been in a completely different outfit, but this was photographed at some point and then somebody drew it. It feels sort of like an inside joke, but also a mockery, so maybe kind of like a backhanded, like, compliment. Not really a compliment, but you get what I mean. But yes, this also, in my opinion, lends to the initial thought that I had of, oh, Epstein's like replicating an Oval Office because this is a president, and I mean, this is in the Oval Office room. So take from that what you will. Next, we have this, which is also towards the entryway of his New York estate. And this to me is incredibly symbolic. This is something that I discussed briefly on TikTok for those on the podcast. This is that statue of a woman in like a bridal gown and a veil dangling from a rope in like a main hallway. I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's been all over the internet. This is one that I just can't pass up because I think it says a lot. Number one, this doesn't get there by accident, right? He doesn't accidentally have a statue in this position. It's not accidentally a woman hanging from a rope, right? This is intentional. This is something that he went, oh, you know what I would really like in my massive estate? This. And then had somebody design it, and then had somebody install it. This is on purpose. Every choice that he makes as far as decorating his mansion is intentional. Nothing happens accidentally. When you are choosing to decorate your home, you put things in a specific spot for a specific reason. Unless you have ADHD and then you kind of just throw shit everywhere. But that's beside the point. So what this says to me is, number one, again, Epstein is putting himself in a position of power. Number one, okay, anytime he walks into this room, he's looking at a woman dangling from a rope, and he does absolutely nothing about it. He put her up there. He could take her down if he wants to, but he's not going to. This is 100% power-oriented. On top of that, the rope is the only lifeline that this statue of a woman has. Epstein gave it to her. He can take it away from her. The clothes that she's wearing are the clothes that he gave her. He can take that away from her. On top of that, you can't see it in this particular photograph, but on the staircase, actually you can a little bit, there's a chair. And with the way that this chair is positioned, you sit in it and you stare exactly at this woman dangling from a rope. On top of that, I believe that this is intentional because when you walk into this room, again, it's one of the main entrances to his estate, this is a shock factor. Nobody else is going to have something like this in their mansion, in their house. You're going to walk in, you're going to look up, and you're going to go, what the hell is that? That's on purpose, and I think he gets a little bit of a kick out of it. I think he enjoys it. Especially because there's a chair that he can sit in right here and just stare at it. So I think it's definitely a power dynamic. I think it's a little bit sadistic, if I'm being honest. Because if this were a real person, which thankfully it's not, falling from this height would be incredibly painful. And dangling from this height would be incredibly difficult to do if somebody's like just sitting in a chair watching you do this and they're not helping you. Again, this just reads as a power dynamic. Somebody who enjoys watching another individual suffer and it brings them pleasure. And that's, I think, why this is so shocking. Because it's not accidental and it says a lot without words being needed. Next is something that I found incredibly interesting. Couple of things. Number one, if you go through Dataset 1, you will notice that in just about every bathroom there is a chase or a lounge or a bench directly in front of a mirror. But this is the only one that has the statue of a little boy. And at face value, you're like, okay, sure. Number one, he's staring directly into the mirror. He's smiling. He appears happy. But again, this is intentional. This is not accidental. Epstein said, hey, you know what would be really funny and something that I would enjoy? The statue of a little boy sitting on a bench in a bathroom staring into the mirror. But not only that, I'm going to put him in the middle of the bench. Okay? The only reason this exists is one, because Epstein wants it to, and two, so that people can sit next to the little boy on the bench in a bathroom. And then they can stare into the mirror sitting next to this child who is appearing to be happy because they have no choice. It's a statue. And that, to me, number one, is predatory in nature. Again, it's the quiet part being said out loud. But it kind of lends to a theme that I will discuss with Epstein liking the whole watching and being watched type of dynamic, aka voyeurism and exhibitionism. I think he's either one or the other or both. Or he's kind of catering to his audience. That is probably one or the other, if not both. Because picture a grown-ass individual sitting next to this smiling little statue of a boy, and they're both looking into the mirror. Why would you do that? Why would you even have this statue in the first place? There's no reason for it. Absolutely none. This does not need to exist in the slightest, and yet it does. And of all places, the bathroom? Really? That's okay. Sure. If that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing. Next, we have something that I found particularly interesting. I kind of had to go hunting for it, but this is in one of Epstein's offices. It's a picture of sort of like a Greek classical painting. If you're an art historian, please forgive me. I don't know the correct term. It's a man who has an expression of fear and is leaning forward like on a wall or a ledge with his arms out in front of him. And I looked up what this painting is. It's made by, I believe his name is William Blake. He died in like 1827. And it wasn't titled, but it's loosely referred to as Phobos, which, if you don't know, is the Greek god or deity of fear. And in the painting, this individual has a stark expression of fear. And like I said, every decoration is intentional. And he put the painting directly above the doorway. So anytime he leaves this room, he's going to look at that painting and see this expression of a young man that is completely terrorized and in fear. Which means that at some point, when decorating this section of his mansion, Epstein said, hey, you know what I would really like to look at on this wall of mine is a young man who's absolutely terrified. Again, a power dynamic and a little bit of sadism, because he's getting his rocks off and a little bit of amusement and enjoyment at the fact that this person is scared shitless. Again, the quiet part is being said out loud. Next, we have another bathroom situation. Mirrors, again. And then you can't see it in this angle of the photo, but there is another chase or a lounge facing the mirror. Two things that I want to talk about. Number one, this photo off to the right. It looks to be a drawing of like a Greek statue of a little boy. I believe it's a little boy. Either way, it's a very young child. They still kind of have their baby fat. They are young enough that they have like that chubby little soft skin. That sounds weird to describe it as, but it's the only thing I can think of. And then this other individual is cut off, but there's a person looming over them. You can tell because there's a foot here that definitely is not attached to the young little boy. This little boy, though his face is kind of cut off, appears to be either unconscious or asleep or whatever else it is that you want to make of it. Their eyes are closed. They don't appear to be awake. This is a theme that comes up a lot in Dataset 2 that I will touch on briefly pertaining to Dataset 1. Dataset 2 is a lot of IRL pictures and photographs of Epstein with individuals. Dataset 1 is pertaining specifically to Epstein's properties. But this photo with the little boy and somebody that is cut off, looming over them, again, not only is it weird to have like a naked little boy just in your bathroom, but it establishes that power dynamic. Then, if you go over to the left, there's this honestly pretty well-crafted, interesting little statue of Kronos. He's got wings and a beard and everything, and there's a little hourglass by his foot. He's got a scythe or a scythe, however you pronounce it, in one hand and a clock. For those who don't know, Kronos, whether you spell it with a K or a CH, is the deity of time. And his lore, as best as I recall it, is that he killed his father with the scythe that he was given, and that was to usurp power. Once he had that power, he married Rhea, had some kids. There was a prophecy that was like, hey, you're going to get overthrown by your kids. They're going to bring in a new era. Kronos didn't like that. So what does he do? He eats his kids. He eats all of his kids, except Zeus, who when Zeus is born, he gets hid in like a cave and a bunch of nymphs make a bunch of noise to drown out his cries. He's allowed to grow up and then eventually helps free his siblings by having Kronos throw them up, and then they usurp the throne and kill Kronos, cut him into a bunch of pieces, and throw him into Tartarus. The thing I want to talk about here is that Kronos is a devourer of children, right? Who else would you say is a devourer of children. Oh yeah, maybe somebody by the name of Epstein. The quiet part is definitely out loud. Excuse me, I have to take a sip of water. Because Kronos was willing to victimize his own children, right? Epstein is victimizing legitimately just any child that he can get his hands on. Also, Kronos was a king. He literally controls all of time. When you think about it, that makes him like the most powerful deity ever. And the only way to get rid of him was to kill him. What happened with Epstein? I don't think he died on his own. Call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. But I don't believe that for a second. I think there were a lot of people that wanted him dead. And I think they cut him up into a bunch of pieces and they banished him into the pits of hell. Now we go to another weird bathroom scene where just above the toilet there is a drawing of, I believe it's 2 little boys. They look like they're probably 3, maybe 4. Standing, they're facing each other, they're both looking down, they have nothing but underwear on, and they are pulling their underwear away from their bodies to look down at their genitals. And they are also looking at each other's genitals. First of all, why? I don't think I've ever been in a bathroom where somebody has a giant framed picture of this, but also above the toilet in a grown man's house. Really? That's what we're doing? But the thing about this is it can be played off as like, oh, that's funny, that's cute, like, oh, boys do that, because yes, boys do that. I have 2 younger brothers who around that age thought their wieners were the funniest thing on the face of the earth. Like, it's a boy thing, boys do that. So he can play it off a little bit. But then, to the left, there is another image that is drawn of a naked woman. And there's just naked people everywhere, all the time, in this house of his in New York. And the quiet part is out loud. I'm going to keep saying that because the fact that this went undisclosed for so long is absolutely appalling to me because the signs are all there. It is all there. I don't get it. After that, we're going to go to, I don't want to say famous photo, but one that I think a lot of people have talked about on social media since these were first released. But on Epstein's desk, there is the photograph of that woman that's like at a table, slumped over. She seems to be in like only a t-shirt. Obviously her face is redacted, but she's either asleep or she's unconscious. She might even be dead. Who knows? This photograph is very disturbing because number one, why do you have it on your desk? Why is it something that you want to continuously look at? That's kind of weird, right? Well, fun fact, this photograph is one of only 2 in his entire New York mansion and other properties that is framed twice and shows up twice. Which means that this was important enough, not only did he frame it once and put it in a place that he could look at it, he did it twice. And out of all of the artwork and photographs and paintings and drawings that he could have done that with, he only did it with 2. Which leads me to believe that there is some sort of significant importance with not only this photograph, but the individual in that photograph. I don't know who she is. I hope she's doing well and that she is alive. But I found that very peculiar and very curious. Next, we have, again, with the watching and being watched and the weird statues in awkward places, this statue of, I think, I'm going to get in trouble if I say whether I think it's Chinese or Japanese, but it's some sort of soldier from an Asian country that is facing into a room. It is positioned directly by the door, and it is staring at a photograph of a painting of a naked boy standing in like a bunch of disgusting apocalyptic garbage. And this, again, leads me down the path that Epstein and his associates have this weird thing of watching things and being watched and having inanimate objects watch them and other people. Like, it's just weird. The voyeurism and the exhibitionism is on full display because it doesn't even have to be an actual legitimate person that is doing it. It's like weird paintings and statues and drawings, and it only gets worse because I have more examples and it is just a consistent theme through all of his properties. But keep this painting of the naked boy in mind, okay? It's going to be important. Here's a better close-up of it, right? There's like a detention center behind him, a dumpster by him, a garbage can by him, garbage all on the floor, and he's buck naked. And then in the next room, wrong photo, there is a woman who is also in a dump site in like a post-apocalyptic world who is buck-ass naked. And I'm not even sure if she's alive or dead because the face is redacted. But these, I think, are both incredibly disturbing because, again, they're young individuals that are naked in a painting where they are legitimately equated with garbage. They are thrown out. The one that I find most disturbing is the one with the girl. This honestly reads to me as like a dump site for a body. She has been thrown out and abandoned. And again, used and abused. Um, and the fact that this is a painting in a massage room is freaking wild to me because what this comes across as is a warning and not like, oh, what an interesting thought provoking art piece. This is like a, hey, this can happen to you. You better shut your damn mouth. Like, I will throw you out. This is where you could end up being. And it evokes a big emotional response in me because as somebody who is familiar with true crime, this just feels like a place where you would throw out a body, like just in a landfill. And it is a naked girl painted in a landfill, which displays the power dynamic and also the fact that he doesn't view people, whether it's the girl or the boy, as anything other than expendable. And then off to the side, there's another naked girl in a photograph, which, again, are we surprised? Moving on, we get another weird statue situation of a vanity in front of a chair facing the mirror. There is a naked little baby smiling at the chair where nobody is sitting and just looking very endearingly at the place where somebody would sit. Again, I keep repeating myself because I feel like I have to, but the weird voyeurism exhibitionism thing. But we're going to get into the interesting part where in the bathroom, okay, at first you're like, oh, what a weird looking naked lady. And then you look to the left, and it's that same picture again of the girl on the couch, slumped over. Her face is redacted, and she's only wearing a t-shirt. Again, the second time that this photo shows up. So not only is it on Epstein's desk, it is now in a bathroom in his estate as well. So why does this photo show up twice compared to all of the others? What's so special about this one that he needs it not once in his estate, but twice in his estate? That's what I want to know, because there's only one other photo that has the same thing, which I will get to eventually, and I'm very curious about that one as well. Oh look, there it is. This photo is of Epstein with a young girl riding on his shoulders. Her hands are folded neatly atop his head. Her face is redacted. Again, this is a child. As you can see, the border is very specific, very elegant border, very large, tall picture. Keep that in mind. Put that in your back pocket, okay? Let it sit. In the same area, we have another framed photo of a child. If I had to guess, probably like 5 or 6, in a set of pajamas, laying down on some blue and white striped comforter or bed sheets. This kid is very clearly asleep, just based on the position of their body. They've got like their head tucked over one arm, the wrists down and limp. Again, with the sleeping and the unconsciousness, this is something that comes into play in Dataset 2, which I'm very eager to talk about. What it reads to me is a couple of things, namely the power dynamic, but also the vulnerability of the person being photographed. This is somebody who is asleep and unaware. Somebody who is incredibly vulnerable, has no idea that their photo is being taken, and yet it is. And there's somebody making the explicit choice to not only take advantage of that vulnerability, but in a way of that privacy. Like, when I'm sleeping, I don't want people to look at me. I don't want people to photograph me because I am asleep. I can't consent to that shit, right? I would say a lot of people have similar feelings. So somebody was alone with this adolescent child while they were asleep and then photographed them. And the kid probably has no idea. And now it is sitting in a pedophile's mansion, framed on a wall. Next, we have the workout room, or one of many workout rooms. And look, there's another statue. Isn't that crazy? Just sitting off to the side of the room in the back corner where I can watch the entire gym. Coincidence? I think not. Because again, dudes likes being watched. He said, wow, I don't need a person to watch me if I just have a statue to stand in the corner and stare at me with this blank gaze of lifeless wonder. It's so weird. Okay. Another thing that is incredibly weird to me, and the only thing of its kind that I noticed, aside from the lady that's like topless above the toilet, is this weird sculpture above the black bathtub of a female ballerina's leg with hands reaching out of the wall to tie the ballet shoe. If there was like a reason to have this, I think it's a beautiful sculpture. I think it's very feminine. I like it. I don't know who made it, but like I can get behind it. The fact that one, it's in Epstein's house, but two, it's in the bathroom above the bathtub, that's weird. That's fetishy. There's no other reason that is there. He's not enjoying it as just a purveyor of art. He likes it because it gets his rocks off. It's one of those things where like I look at it and I go, wow, that's a really neat sculpture, and then I remember the context and the situation, and then my stomach gets all weird because ew. Next, we have a room full of binders. There is a better rendered picture, but I for some reason didn't save it. These binders all have a bunch of redacted names, and there's a bunch of documents in these other boxes off to the side. He has a bunch of floppy disks and all sorts of things. Epstein documented like legitimately everything, and if it wasn't him doing it, it was Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think that was so that they could blackmail the shit out of a bunch of people. But this binder on the left says NFL, PB, and LSJ. I don't know what NFL is outside of like football, but PB stands for Palm Beach and LSJ stands for Little St. James, which are both places that Epstein owned property. And then on one of these binders as well is the name Zorro. And if you go through the Dataset 1 pictures, Zorro pops up a couple of times. And I was very confused as to what that was until I remembered a video that I watched of a TikToker named Slightly High Historian, love her content, who stated that it was a property owned by Epstein and his estate that was sold. I don't know who the new owners are, but there are a bunch of allegations that came out of sex trafficking, rape, sex with minors, things like that. And it is currently under investigation by New Mexico authorities, but it was known as Zorro Ranch. And apparently it was just another place for Epstein to continue to do the batshit crazy stuff that he did, just kind of on the other side of the country. And there's another photo that I have saved that kind of pertains to Zorro Ranch, which I will show you when I get to it. Next, we have what looks like, honestly, a secret villain's lair. Like, think of, like, Penguin from Batman. Like, honestly, I could see him having something like this. Elegant wood stairs, bookshelves, beautiful blue carpet leading up the stairs, nice lighting. And then you look to the right, and there's just a naked statue of a woman fondling herself. And when I say fondling, I'm not even joking. She's touching her boob, she's touching her hoo-ha. Just really weird. No reason to have that just out and about. But again, he's saying the quiet part out loud. Women are objects to him. They are expendable. You can throw them out. You can stare at them. You can do whatever you want to women. And honestly, there were probably, I can almost guarantee that a lot of young boys were also victimized in this whole thing. I think Epstein himself just preferred women, which is why there's a gratuitous amount of naked women throughout his estate. This was very interesting. This was a letter in the blue carpeted area written by Stephen D. Small from Buffalo, New York, 14215. You can read it if you want on YouTube. You can pause it. And then let me show you the back of it really quick. Basically, what Mr. Small says in this letter is that he is sorry Epstein got caught up in the women that he was caught up with, that they are now using and abusing him to get his money because he is a rich man and rich men are being targeted as of late. He classifies these women as runaways and states that they knew what they were getting into. And he expresses concern for Epstein's health and well-being and says that he will advocate for Epstein. And this was interesting to me because it really shows the mentality behind the people that supported Epstein and the way that victims in this case are still viewed today. They are besmirched, they are talked down upon, they are bullied, they are reprimanded constantly because they want the truth to come out. And the people who are putting them down to protect people in positions of power are the same people who would be writing letters to Epstein, which is a man that they condemn. And yet that behavior, they don't recognize that as consistent behavior. And this goes for all sorts of people. And I think that this letter, if people actually read it, might help them self-reflect on that type of rhetoric, because it is a very dangerous type of rhetoric. It is something that happens a lot in law enforcement, where, oh, well, she was just a runaway, or, oh, he was just a runaway. That's what happened with John Wayne Gacy. Like, nobody cared about his victims until a young white boy who had people who actually cared about him saying, hey, he's missing. What's happening here? Come to find out, tons of young boys were victimized by this man because, oh, well, they're runaways. Oh, well, they're poor. Nobody gave a shit about them. And this is a cycle that is just continuously repeating. And I think part of the reason that people like Small here support Epstein is even if they themselves are not pedophiles, is because they want something from Epstein. They want wealth. They want a scratch on the back. There's an exchange. There's a flow of information. There's a flow of power. There's a flow of something. They're getting something out of it. It may not be that they're abusing children, but they're not going to condemn a man who has a shit ton of money. That can help them out in a business dealing. Next, we have a bunch of photographs. Again, just because they are depicted with Epstein does not mean that they themselves are a child predator, but it is something to consider and look at, right? First on the left here, part of the flash cuts it out, so I don't know if they're actually with Epstein at all, but it's a picture of the Pope. Then, in this drawer down here at the bottom, we have that iconic photo of Trump. I can't remember who the other lady is, and then Epstein and Ghislaine. And then we have a photo of Bill Clinton. In Dataset 2, I've already seen tons of photos with Bill Clinton. There's some with Michael Jackson. I'm still working on it with some of the others. Obviously, Donald Trump is in this photograph. There's tons of people that have met Epstein. That said, something that I want to talk about while I have the opportunity is that the reason people are concerned about who is in photos with Epstein is because we as human beings surround ourselves with like-minded individuals. We've been that way since the dawn of time. It's why certain people lived with, like, certain tribes got along and others didn't. It's why we continue to classify human beings into groups. It's why we want to belong to certain groups. Think of religion. Oh, you're Christian? A lot of Christians only want to coexist with Christians because they're like-minded individuals, right? Nerds get along with nerds. Jocks get along with jocks. We have sororities, we have fraternities, right? We like groups. We like being affiliated with somebody. We like people who understand us on a fundamental level so we don't have to constantly explain ourselves. An example of this is a lot of people with ADHD naturally end up with friends who also have ADHD. Because one, you can relate to them easier, and you don't have to explain your thought process or your behaviors, like you just understand each other, right? That's an example of things like this happening naturally. Same thing can be said, like women. A lot of times, women connect with people. Like, women connect with women more than they connect with men a lot of times because, oh, well, they understand that this is a thought process I have to have. I can't go out alone at night. I have to be careful about my drink. Like, there are things culturally that certain groups understand that other groups won't, right? That said, When it comes to being a pedophile, that is not something that you like accidentally stumble into a group of, right? Because when you compare it, like pedophiles statistically, like as a number, to people with ADHD or like autism and things like that, the number is significantly smaller. And you have to seek that type of companionship out. You don't just accidentally find it, because they know on a moral and social level that if anybody figures that out about them and they just throw that out there, like they're in trouble. So they have to be selective and they have to find people that are like-minded individuals. So the concern is, well, in all of these photos that people, like all of these people are around Epstein, right? Which one of them is that like-minded individual? Which one of them is like Epstein? And based on what I've seen in Dataset 2, there's a good amount of people that are consistently depicted in those photos who were jailed for sex charges and sex trafficking or are currently under investigation. So the concern is legitimate. Now, one thing I do want to make clear while we're on the topic of pedophiles is that pedophilia and pedophile are two different things, okay? All pedophiles have pedophilia, but not all those with pedophilia are pedophiles. Now, this may sound like a controversial take, but it's not, because it's just based in fact and psychology, right? Pedophilia is a mental health disorder. People naturally have a negative reaction to it because of pedophiles, which makes sense. Like, I'm not going to condemn you for that, right? There are a small, like very small percentage of people who have pedophilia that go, oh shit, this isn't normal, this is wrong, I have a problem in my brain, I'm going to seek out the proper therapy and resources and help so that I don't victimize people, right? Those are good people, okay? They can't help the fact that they were born with a fucked up brain. Unfortunately, that's how it is. It's no different than ADHD or bipolar or anything like that, right? Some people's brains are just different. But these are responsible individuals who are good people in society that get the help that they need so that they don't victimize anybody. However, a lot of people with pedophilia do not do that and then become pedophiles. You don't become a pedophile until you victimize somebody. Once you victimize somebody, you are then a pedophile, right? So I just want to clear that up, right? It's like squares, okay? Every rectangle is a square, but not every square is a rectangle, right? Every pedophile has pedophilia, but not everybody with pedophilia is a pedophile. I think that's a common misconception, and this isn't me excusing pedophiles, okay? I want to make that clear, since some people struggle with understanding complex thoughts and nuance. But yeah, that's how that works, and that is why people want to know and have a proper investigation of everyone that is associated with Epstein, because there's reason to be concerned. Again, like-minded individuals seek each other out. Like, you don't accidentally find other pedophiles. You have to go looking for that. Alright, let's go on to our next photo set. Ah, yes, this one. So, in a room that was absolutely full of sex toys that I cannot show, there were photographs of schoolgirl uniforms. Again, not surprising, just goes to show the predatory behavior, because at the end of the day, even if these uniforms were worn by grown adult women, there's very clearly an issue with the fact that they are trying to infantilize these grown adult women to be younger. It is still an expression of pedophilia. Now, remember that photo of the girl sitting on Epstein's shoulders? Yeah, the photo's back. Okay, this is the other one that appears twice in his estate. And it's the same photo, it's just framed differently, it's in a different area, okay? And it's cut off, right? It's interesting, isn't it? Wouldn't you say? But yeah, she's sitting on his shoulders, she's got her hands on top of his head. I think it's interesting that it shows up twice. I want to know why. Or I might just be dumb and can't realize that it's in the same spot, but I'm pretty sure this is a different area, because the border in the other one goes all the way around, and it does not here, and it appears that the photo is cropped differently. So, we already talked about the Bill Clinton photo, I'm pretty sure, but if we didn't, this is Bill Clinton in a blue dress and red heels. I was told it might be an homage to the Monica Lewinsky blue dress situation, but this is leading into the makeshift Oval Office of Epstein, but it's a drawing of Bill Clinton sitting in a chair with his legs slung over the side in a blue dress and red heels. There's a note to the side that I wish I could read, but I cannot. Next, we have a prime example of something that I want to talk about because I think that it's important, but before we do that, I'm going to take a sip of water because my throat is scratchy. So, it's a little unclear exactly what species of animal is in this image, okay? It is a statue of, I think it's either a deer or a camel, I think like a deer, with a lion or a tiger on its back, biting it and eating it. It's a sculpture, it's a statue of some sort. This thematically matches up with a lot of photos in Dataset 1 of the New York estate. There are paintings of zebras, there are furniture with zebra print, there's furniture with like leopard print and cheetah print. In fact, in this picture, there's a chair with, I think, leopard print or jaguar print on it. There is a lot of visual symbolism of a predator and prey. On the Little St. James property of Epstein, there's a similar type of depiction as well. I can't remember exactly what it looks like, but there are multiple indications that Epstein has somewhat of a fascination in the predator and prey relationship, which again makes a lot of sense given who we're talking about. The quiet part is out loud. This is somebody who put this here on purpose because they get a kick out of watching something get victimized and torn to pieces and preyed upon. Epstein is a predator, even amongst his peers when you think about it, because of the power that he has and the influence that he has. He's got people by the throat, by the neck, just the way that this lion does with the deer or whatever the hell it is. He can rip out your freaking jugular. Oh, you want to cross him? Cool. He's got a bunch of blackmail material on how you raped a bunch of kids, right? So, again, this is self-expression in the home where the quiet part is out loud. He has a big sadistic tendency. He is very much somebody who thinks highly of himself and is a apex predator. In his world, he absolutely is. This isn't even like subtly projecting. He is. If you look at who he's associated with and the influence and power he had and how much was exposed after he died and how long this went on without people knowing about it, he's an apex predator. Next, we have something that stuck out to me. This is the only painting even remotely of its kind. For those on the podcast side of things, this is basically what looks like a child's drawing. There's like disembodied stick figures and a big smear of color that's not complete in the sky. It looks like a 3-year-old drew it. And that's what stuck out to me so much, because when you look at all of the art and the photos and the rest of his property, it's all very serious, it's all well done, it's all very mature. And this is not. This is incredibly adolescent. And I tried to figure out who the artist was, and I have no idea. I don't know if this is something that was actually drawn by a kid, and then he framed it. I don't know if it was made by an artist. To me, I feel like I would be able to tell the difference between like a grown-ass adult pretending to paint like a kid and an actual kid doing it, but who knows. This is the only wall decoration, painting, whatever the hell you want to call it, that looks like this. And all of his properties in all of Dataset 1, this is the only one that looks like it. And again, it's intentional. He put it up there for a reason. I may not know why, exactly why I should say, but I have a sinking suspicion as to why. But it's incredibly immature, and it definitely looks like it was drawn or painted by a 3-year-old. Like, this is not accidental. If this was made by an actual kid, I'd be curious as to who and what the relationship is there. This picture, this one is, yeah, this is something. I'm not going to zoom in because there's a lot of inappropriate things going on, but the context of this is there are people of color, in some sort of like orgy. They appear incredibly young. There is a naked dancing boy in the center of the picture. Everybody is buck naked. the most disturbing part is that this boy appears to be like 8 or 9 years old and has a fully erect penis. And it's disgusting and I hate it. But this isn't just a small painting, it takes up the entire wall. And you can't see it in this image, but directly across from it is a bed. And the painting with the dancing little naked boy is staring directly at the bed. So again, we have the weird, like, voyeurism and exhibitionist thing going on here. On top of that, this is also very much racist with the way that it's depicted, and then also very predatory in nature, because why the hell do you have a painting of a child with their clothes off? And yeah, I don't even want to say it. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. I hate it a lot. But again, an inanimate object watching a bed, watching where a person sleeps, and it's the dynamic is intentional. It is gross. I do not like it. Here we are. Okay. Moving on a little bit. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 photos left. Alright. So, you know how I said that this dude's a narcissist? And, like, knows that he's a powerful guy? Amongst the binders and boxes, we have one titled Photos of J.E. J.E. Awards. There's the photo cuts it off, but there's another one that's like magazine photos of J.E. J.E. stands for Jeffrey Epstein. And then underneath there's a Selena photos. I don't know who Selena is. I would be very curious to know who that is and why there's a box of photos with her. But I'm curious as to what the Jeffrey Epstein Awards are. I don't think I would want to get an award from him or have anything to do with him, but apparently there's like an award ceremony pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein. That, or these are awards that Jeffrey Epstein has earned. And if that's the case, I want to know what he did to earn the award and who gave it to him. But, like I said, this man documents legitimately everything. He has boxes and boxes and boxes, binders, binders, and binders, CDs, and floppy disks of legitimately everything. In Dataset 2 alone, I swear to God, they take pictures, like, of everything. He could fart and there would be a photograph of it. So, there's a lot here, and the fact that there's such an extensive amount of photographs that are released, and that's not even like, that's just a small percentage of the total files taken, is incredible to me. But yeah, just kind of adding on to the fact that this man is very narcissistic and has a big sense of self-worth, because yes, I keep photos of myself from time to time, but I don't have just boxes full of it. So then we move on to something that ties back into how we started this. So this is a phone directory. There's some stuff that's redacted, but you'll notice up here, even though it's grainy, this says Oval Room on it. Pertaining to the mini Oval Office that I suspected was, again, a narcissistic representation of how self-important he is and how he seems to have almost the same power as a presidential, of the president. So yeah, Oval Room, I'm pretty sure that I was kind of on the nose with that one, not to just toot my own horn, but if you're calling it the Oval Room, and it's shaped like the Oval Office, I would say that I'm pretty accurate in that regard. This dude knows that he has a lot of power, and he just does not give a shit, because at the end of the day, nobody did anything about it for a very long time. Alright, now we're going to move to Little St. James. Going throughout these photographs, it's very interesting because this is the first building, but throughout the entire property, almost everything is incredibly bare, incredibly clean, incredibly stark. Very different than his mansion in New York. Part of that's because he had like actual visitors, so he couldn't just put a whole bunch of weird shit on display the way that he did in his own mansion for those more private visitors. That said, this is, I think, in the first building, the only piece of wall art that exists. And it is a photograph that is very enlarged of a naked baby sitting in a sink. There's no other decoration, I believe, in the entire building. Which, one, is incredibly weird because this is a man who very clearly likes to decorate. But number two, of all the photographs, of all the things that you could hang up on the wall, you pick that, and this is a place where you're hosting guests and strangers. If I walked into a guest house and I saw a gigantic photo of a naked baby in a sink, I would be very off-put by that. Because yes, let's just say this might be like a relative's baby. It might be a grandkid. My parents have naked baby photos of me that they don't hang up on the wall because those are private and that goes in a scrapbook, and that's something that you open on occasion and laugh about because it's funny. It's not something that you put on display. So again, incredibly weird. Also, this is a baby who cannot really consent to having their portrait just thrown up on the wall like that. Here we have something that's incredibly disturbing, which is the dentist chair. It's something that I alluded to having a couple of theories on my TikTok, which I do. But again, we have a bunch of weird masks all over the walls, which goes back to the voyeurism and the exhibitionism. And I don't remember if I explained it, but just so you know, voyeurism is you like watching other people be sexual, and exhibitionism is you like other people watching you be sexual. That's like the bare bones term of it. There's a little bit of variance and kind of how people do that. It becomes a problem and predatory when people don't know that that's what you're doing. So yeah, again, he definitely has a thing for, I would say, humans, but also inanimate objects watching what's going on and also likes being watched by them. But let's talk about the dentist chair, because first and foremost, the people who are visiting Epstein outside of the victims have enough money to not need to get dental care on an island owned by Epstein. They don't need that. They have their own dentists. In fact, they all probably have fucking veneers at this point. So, who's going to be getting dental care? Well, it may be the employees, but I would hope that he pays them enough that they don't need that. So that leaves the victims. And why would we have victims needing dental care? Because they're probably missing. They probably are considered runaways. They're probably poor. And there's this really cool thing where if you just do private dental care on an island owned by Epstein, there's probably not dental records. And in case you don't know, dental records are something that can be very important when it comes to identifying bodies. Granted, I don't know if Epstein's killed anybody or his associates, but it wouldn't be surprising. I wouldn't put it past them. So let's just say, for instance, they traffic a child and the kid gets their dental care done here, but it doesn't go on record. Then said child is later disposed of. Because there is no record of their dental care, that body cannot be identified. I know it sounds like conspiracy theory, but if we're being honest, I don't think it's that crazy to think about, and that it's actually pretty plausible, given the people that have this type of wealth and money, and are engaged in this prolific amount of sex trafficking. Like, I think it's a legitimate thing. The other option, which is, I would say, just as crazy, is that this is like all a setup for role play, which I think is really weird. But who knows? It might be. It might be for both. Lord knows what goes on here. But yeah, I have a feeling that this is as sinister as it seems, because there's legitimately no other reason that somebody should be getting their dental care from, like, a weird resort owned by Epstein. Especially if it's a guest. So, yeah, this gives me the ick. Then we have a handmade scrapbook titled, "Once Upon a Time, There Was a Clueless Little Girl." First of all, gross. Second of all, while going through all of these photos, there is a letter written by somebody, I don't know the name of them because I believe it's redacted, who is writing to Ghislaine Maxwell saying, "Hey, I sent you all of these photos. I wrote a nice sentimental letter for Epstein. Can you put that in the book for him? It'll make him very happy." And that leads me to believe that there are a lot of other scrapbooks that are kept of people who were involved in Epstein's circle of things, whether they were a victim. I'm assuming they probably are. And even more importantly, he has kept these scrapbooks, because obviously we have a photograph of one, which means that they exist. And the interesting thing about that is that this is a similar pathology to serial killers, where they keep keepsakes. Now, keepsakes and trophies are different. Keepsakes are something personal that somebody wants to keep to themselves to reflect on a bad thing that they did that brought them joy. Trophies are something that they put on display. The letter that is written indicates to me that this is a common practice where victims are like, here's photographs of me, here's this nice thing that I wrote, this is sentimental. Ghislaine Maxwell puts it into a book, gives it to Epstein as a gift, and then he keeps it as a keepsake. So he can look back on all of the people that he's victimized and reminisce. And the fact that this is titled Once Upon a Time There Was a Little Girl, was a clueless little girl, is very disturbing. Next we have a letter, and I don't know how old this individual is. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can read it. But she basically talks about how he was able to send her to Arizona so she could be with her dad and her sister, and then had her sister come hang out with her at, like, LA, different things like that. This girl was taken to the Virgin Islands, which is where Little St. James is, Palm Beach, Las Vegas, New Mexico. All of these places are where Jeffrey Epstein has properties with sexual assault allegations and sex trafficking allegations. I don't know the age of this individual, but given the way that this letter is constructed, it reads as juvenile, maybe a little more teenager, just because of how good the handwriting is. But the way that this is drawn, I mean, it seems juvenile in nature. But yeah, an interesting letter, to say the least. I'm not sure why they would write this, if they were told to write this, or they just felt like it. The important thing is that Epstein felt the need to keep it, which again lends me to believe that this is probably a victim of Epstein, because it was important enough for him to maintain it after all of this time, when he could have very well thrown it out. Now we have a set of photographs which are pretty unassuming until you look at this. The Z for Zorro Ranch. Remember how I talked about that earlier, being in New Mexico and how it belonged to Epstein, and there were a bunch of assault allegations that are now being investigated by New Mexico authorities? There you go. There's proof that it exists. Moving on, one thing that I found interesting, because it kind of ties into something else that I noticed at his New York estate that I did not get a screenshot of, is first and foremost an Israel Defense Forces sweatshirt. I'm not sure why he has that, but he does. There's a lot of political stuff going on with Israel. I'm not super familiar with all of it. I don't agree with a lot of what is going on over there. I'm not going to get into it because this is not a video focused on Israel, but you can take away from this what you will. Epstein, in his New York mansion, has an entire closet full of police uniforms. And not just like, oh, you can recognize that as something that a cop would wear. I mean, the badges are still intact on the sleeves. And as somebody who has worked in law enforcement, the way that's supposed to work when you get rid of a shirt is either you cut out the badges and throw away the shirt and it's unusable, or you remove the badges and you give away the shirt. That's not what this closet is full of. It is full of, like, actual different department uniforms. And the badges are on the shirts. And that to me is very concerning, because you could just very easily have somebody pretend to be a cop, and I don't know how you obtain those types of uniforms, because I don't think you can just get those online, unless he made them himself. But it's definitely weird. I don't know exactly what it means, but he has, like, a whole collection of them from different places, including New York, which is where the estate is. So that's interesting. He also consistently wears a lot of, like, Navy, Marines, and U.S. Army clothing. Like sweats just with the logos and the brands. So I'm not sure what that's about either. I have some guesses. I wouldn't be surprised if he has some dealings in that sort of realm of things. But yeah. Next we have something that I think is very telling. Again, the quiet part is out loud, but it's a little more subtle. So this is translated into English from Russian, so this is the English pronunciation. I have to look at my phone because I got the proper translation. Give me a sec. So the first line says, don't lie down on the edge. And this is actually part of a Russian lullaby that says, Grey Wolf will come and bite you on the side of your tummy if you lie on the edge of the bed. I'm sure you can get the symbolism from that without me really having to extrapolate a whole lot. again, this goes back to the predator and prey dynamic that I talked about, the sadism, this narcissism, the I'm in charge, I can do what I want, I'm the predator. Epstein is the wolf, and the victim is the person lying on the bed. Don't lay too close to the edge of the bed or you're going to get bit. That also implies that there is a monster lurking under your bed. This is incredibly symbolic, and the fact that this is written in a work binder of his on a desk, you don't casually write that down. You would have to know, one, the translation for the Russian lullaby, and two, the Russian lullaby in the first place. So this is not accidental. This is something that he wrote down. This is a stream of consciousness that gives us a little bit of a window into who he is as a person. And I think he was probably amused by the lullaby. I think it amused him enough that he wrote it down. The last photo I have for Dataset 1, just because I think it puts a nice little bow on things, is again on Little St. James Island. This is supposed to be a gym. It's under construction. The floor is nothing but a grid system of plywood. There's been nothing placed on top. There's stuff everywhere from things being under construction, and yet mirrors are in place, and up in the top, if you zoom in, there is a little ledge in which a naked statue of a woman is doing a YMCA pose, and behind her is a mirror so that you can see her butt if you look at it. But that's in place. So this building isn't even fully constructed yet. But Epstein said, hey, I have to put a statue of a naked woman in this building, and I have to make sure that the mirrors are in place. I don't care about anything else. And I think that really symbolizes who he is as a person, and who the people he hangs out with are. The objectification of women and bodies, and this need to look at himself in the mirror, and it's the quiet part out loud. Again, I told you I was going to keep saying it, but it is all there. And I think what's most impressive to me about this is that so much of who he is as a person was so visible to the average person. Because looking through this, there were so many times I went, wow, that's weird. Because I know what to expect in somebody's home when it comes to decorations and things. And absolutely none of that applied to Epstein's estates. None of it. At all. So, I think this is a good sentiment to keep in mind, that sometimes the darker side of people can be seen in some subtle ways, in how they decorate their homes, what they present as being normal, what they have a lot of. Clearly it's something that they're interested in, right? He's got a lot of naked women and boys. He's interested in that. That is not an accident. I personally am interested in Avatar The Last Airbender. I have a crap ton of Avatar The Last Airbender merch. Percy Jackson merch. All of that, because I'm interested in it, and it's throughout my house as decoration. But that would make sense, and honestly, that's kind of normal, right? But you know what isn't? A bunch of naked people just hanging out in your house. And I think it kind of highlights the whole situation in the sense that the only way that this was able to happen and go on for so long is because, one, people noticed the weird shit, but didn't say anything about it. Or two, people were so ignorant and caught up in their own lives that they just looked past it and ignored it and didn't actually care enough to go, hey, that's weird. And also there's the people that knew about it and then were part of the problem. I think that's also a given. So I think this is just something, keep in mind that sometimes the quiet part is out loud and it is visible, and it's something that people can see, and it's not always subtle. And I think a lot of people were failed in this. I think this was completely avoidable. But at the end of the day, he had the amount of power that he thought he had, and that is why we are now in the position that we are in. So that is all that I have for Dataset 1. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to get updated for when I finish Dataset 2. I'm working on it. This is going to be a lengthy process. and it's going to take me a while. So podcast episodes might be kind of slow. I'm taking a break from the wicked stuff that I was posting because I think this is important. I think it needs to have actual attention that goes beyond the political side of things. I think the politics are important, but at the end of the day, we also have to remember the victims and the fact that this is a way bigger problem than just one person, whether it's Bill Clinton or Donald Trump. It is way bigger than that, and we shouldn't just be focusing on one person in the entire situation, because then we're just letting a bunch of other people get away with things scot-free, and that's not fair, right? And we're just allowing other people to be victimized. So, I think that's all I have for you guys. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, what it is that you noticed if you've gone through the files so far, and I would love to have a discussion about it. But, in the meantime, stay safe, stay diligent, and stay psyched out.